Hello everyone, I'm the student of life, so let's get to learning. Today our subject is the sea otter, otherwise known by its genus species name Enhydra Lutris. It is the smallest true marine mammal. This means they spend their entire lives in the water, only coming out onto land due to very stormy conditions. We're now discussing some of the basic details of the sea otter. What order, suborder, family, and subfamily does the sea otter belong to? Enhydra Lutris belongs to the otter subfamily Lutrinae. Lutrinae belongs to the weasel family Mustelidae. Mustelidae belongs to the suborder Caniformia, and Caniformia belongs to the order Carnivora. What are the physical measurements for both male and female sea otters? How long do males and females live? What is the average lifespan? How long does it take for male and female otters to mature? A male sea otter's length is 1.48 meters and its weight is 45 kilograms, while a female's length is 1.4 meters and its weight is 36 kilograms. These measurements are for the northern sea otter subspecies. Male sea otters live about 10 to 15 years and take 5 to 6 years to become mature, while female sea otters live longer, around 15 to 20 years, and become mature after 4 to 5 years. Males may not become reproductively successful until a couple of years afterward. An otter's average lifespan ranges from 10 to 12 years. By the way, the longest a sea otter has lived in captivity is 28 years. Are there any sea otter subspecies? How do they compare in size to one another? Yes, there are 3 of them. In terms of size, from biggest to smallest, it goes the Russian sea otter Enhydra lutris, the northern sea otter Enhydra lutris kenyoni, and finally the southern sea otter Enhydra lutris neris. Let us relax and drift into their current range. What was their historic range? How much do they cover in their current range? In Washington state, what is their current range? Historically, they cover space across the North Pacific Rim. They were off the coast of Hokkaido, Japan, up north to Russia, including the eastern coastline, Kuril Islands, Kamchatka Peninsula, and Commander Islands, and then across the ocean to Alaska, including the Aleutian Islands, southeast Alaska's coastline, and the Alaskan Peninsula, and then down by Canada's coastline, and then by Washington, Oregon's, and California's coast, and ends finally by Baja California, Mexico. Currently, they haven't fully expanded back to their old range. They're still not back by Hokkaido in Japan or by Oregon in the United States. Overall, they have only regained 66% of their former range. Humans translocated them to British Columbia and Washington State. Within Washington State, one can find them currently in a range stretching from Point Grenville in the south to Pillar Point on the Strait of Juan de Fuca. Which habitats do they inhabit? Are there any qualities about them? The sea otter inhabits shallow coastal habitats with a seafloor typically 30 meters or less below the surface. These habitats can be semi-enclosed or fully exposed, can have sea floors with rocky or soft sediment, and one can find sea otters around kelp forests. Sea otters stay within 1 to 2 kilometers of the coastline. A sea otter can dive as far down as approximately 100 meters below the surface. Getting all bundled up to stay warm is important. The sea otter is no different. Do they have blubber or fur? Otters have a very dense layer of fur comprising 100,000 to 160,000 hairs per square centimeter or 1 million per square inch. A human, in comparison, has only 100,000 hairs on their head. What else is special about it? What do they do to maintain it? A sea otter's fur has a trapped insulative air layer within it, An air layer the sea otter forms by grooming its fur and blowing air bubbles into it. And the otter loses this insulation if the fur ever becomes soiled. If it happens, they could die of hypothermia. A sea otter's maintenance of its fur takes 10 to 20% of its day. How else do they stay warm? How do their muscles come into the picture? First, they have a metabolism 2.5 to 3 times faster than a similarly sized terrestrial animal. They must consume about 25% of their body weight in prey each day to produce enough heat to survive. As for their muscles, they use up energy and produce heat as a result, either through shivering or physical activity. One otter has started its descent toward the sea floor. We should keep our distance and watch. What prey items do the sea otters eat? Their primary prey items are marine benthic invertebrates. They eat mollusks such as octopus, abalone, and bivalves, crustaceans such as crabs, and echinoderms such as sea urchins. Bivalves include clams, mussels, etc. Outside of the invertebrates, they eat sluggish, bottom-dwelling fish such as the glowfish. They choose prey based on how quick it is to get them, expending less energy as a result. Do they have any hunting preferences? Do different individuals have preferences? Are there any preferences based on size? Yes, they like hunting in areas where they don't have to dive too deep, such as spots where the seafloor is less than or equal to 30 meters below the surface. Each individual differs in their prey preferences, and each sea otter gets their preferences from their mother. Third, they like going after bigger prey first, as those can't easily hide within cracks in the rocks, if at all. Do these animals use tools? Yes, they use rudimentary basic tools such as rocks. First, they use a rock as an anvil to bash a prey against when they're floating on their backs on the surface. Second, they can use a stone to bash a prey attached to a rock to detach it. Want to hear a fun fact? These creatures spend 60 to 90 seconds underwater per dive, but sometimes they can stay underwater for as long as 5 minutes. It is time to check in on the otter family. How long does their gestation period last? Do they ever delay their gestation time? Is this different between the southern and northern subspecies? Is it location dependent for the season they're born into? Their gestation time lasts about 6 months, but sea otters can prolong their gestation time through delayed implantation. Delayed implantation is a process in which the mother prevents the egg from attaching to the wall of the uterus and suspends the embryo's growth. Southern sea otters can prolong the gestation time by 2 to 3 months, while northern sea otters can do so as long as 8 months. They wait until the environmental conditions are optimal. As for location dependent, yes, I didn't get a full idea of this from my research. What is the family unit like? How many pups do they have? What is a sea otter's birth weight and length? The sea otter family unit comprises the mother and a single pup, no father present. On rare occasions, they can have 2 pups at once, but both pups won't survive. The sea otter's birth weight and length are 0.6 meters and 1.4 to 2.3 kilograms respectively. When do the pups forage for their own food? When does the mother wean them off of their milk? A pup takes approximately 2 months before it attempts to hunt, and takes 6 months before it is weaned off of its mother's milk. It is dangerous out in the wild. First off, we have their predators. What non-marine predators do they face? If they ever come on land, wolves and brown bears prey on them. It is something to note that coyotes and bald eagles prey on the sea otter pups. Do they have any marine predators? The marine predators are sharks and orca. Sharks might not actually be their predator and might just be a case of mistaken prey identity. This mistaken prey identity can still be fatal for the otter. As for orca, the mammal-eating ones switched over to them after the orca's preferred prey's population was too low. Otters face other threats aside from predators. Let's discuss what those are. What are some biological and non-biological threats they face? As for biological threats, they have to deal with shark bites, pathogens such as viruses, bacteria, and protozoans, biotoxins accumulated in the shellfish they eat, humans hunting or harassing them, a lack of food, facing bottlenecks and inbreeding because of low genetic diversity, etc. For non-biological threats they face, these include oil spills, gill nets, boat strikes, etc. What actions do humans need to take to increase the sea otter population? It is time to dive into some conservation discussions. How did sea otters end up endangered in the first place? During a period lasting from the 1700s up until 1911, the fur trade was in full swing, and humans considered sea otter pelts as a valuable commodity. They harvested sea otters by the thousands. Thanks to the fur trade, the global sea otter population declined from 150,000 to 300,000 estimated population down to 2,000 individuals remaining in 13 different remnant populations. What efforts have humans made to bring the numbers back up and keep the sea otter population growing? Have any international laws or treaties been signed before the late 1900s? How long has the United States protected them? Were there any efforts made to expand their range? First, in 1911, Great Britain, the United States, Russia, and Japan signed the International Fur Seal Treaty. The treaty put a moratorium on the hunting of sea otters. Second, they are protected under the Marine Mammal Protection Act of 1972 and the Endangered Species Act of 1973. The United States Fish and Wildlife listed the southern subspecies under the ESA in 1977 and only the Alaskan population of the northern subspecies in 2005. Also, people listed them under the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora's appendices. They listed E. L. Neris under Appendix 1 and the others under Appendix 2. As for other efforts, humans translocated sea otters from sections of their current range to where they had been before historically. This wasn't always successful. One of the successful projects had 89 sea otters moved to Vancouver Island, British Columbia from Alaska. 2/3 of the otters came from Prince William Sound, and the remaining third came from Amchitka Island in the Aleutians. Another successful project transported 59 otters from Amchitka Island to Washington State. A study done in 2019 approximates the current Washington population to be 2,785. This population's growth rate accounts for 2% of the global growth rate. Let's talk more about conservation and this species' importance. Due to human efforts, how has the sea otter population recovered? Did the population have any declines within the past 30 years or so? What was the probable cause of this decline? What was one failure of a translocation effort? Between 2000 and 2018, scientists conducted a count and used this to estimate a global population of 128,902 sea otters. There was a decline from the 1980s to 2005 in Alaskan populations, and scientists believed the probable mortality cause was orcas. Finally, any sea otters translocated to Oregon did not stay or survive. This was a failed translocation effort. How important are sea otters? What are the ecosystem relationships like with and without sea otters in kelp forests in estuaries? They are an important keystone species as they keep certain destructive species in check. First, we're focusing on the kelp forests. If one does not have sea otters around, sea urchin populations explode in number and devour the kelp forests. Kelp forests grow and thrive due to the otters keeping sea urchins in check. Now we're looking at a sea otter's role inside estuaries. If one does not have them around inside an estuary, crabs grow in number and eat the sea slugs, which leads to the algae smothering the eel grass and the estuary's banks eroding, thanks in part to the many crabs making burrows. With them around, they keep crabs in check, and the sea slugs exert a greater top-down pressure on the algae. As a result, eel grass thrives without getting smothered. It also leads to the estuary's banks becoming more stable as there are less crabs making burrows. What category does the sea otter currently have in the International Union for Conservation of Nature's Red List? The IUCN categorizes sea otters as endangered in their red list. I have one last fun fact. A group of sea otters is called a raft. These rafts are usually made up of either all females and their pups or all males. It is time for my written and visual references. I hoped I helped someone learn an amazing fact today or helped to reinforce an old one. I leave you all with one last piece of advice. As the world keeps on turning, one can keep on learning. Thank you for tuning into my presentation, and goodbye.